Welcome to the first episode of the No Place podcast, where I'll be talking to the most intriguing people I can find, and we have the perfect guest to start this show with a bang, Travis Wu. How you doing, Trav?
Yo, man, it's awesome. I've never been on like episode one, so that's such an honor.
Man, I
I'm
had
really
this
happy.
idea of doing this show,
Yeah,
sorry, but I needed to get the right person so I could start on the right foot in the right direction.
yes, it's only up from here. I'm excited to see who else you got.
I don't know about that, man. I think it might be
Yeah. Or
only
if it's
down
one
from
and
here.
done, that's cool too.
So first, I'm just gonna give people a bite-sized synopsis of the story of Tiwu, right, to set the stage. So I found out about you, and I think a lot of people first found out about you through Magic the Gathering, right? So you were a
Yeah.
pro Magic player. Somehow you managed to destroy metagames with original ideas, got to travel the world, became a content creator and streamer, working with one of the biggest companies in the game, and you were on the top of the pyramid as far as
Yes.
Magic is concerned, right? Like you achieved everything that people dream about in the game.
Yeah.
And it seems like that ended kind of suddenly, right? So, as far as I
Mhm.
know, maybe you touched on a taboo topic in a stream. Didn't actually say anything so bad, as far as I can remember, but effectively there was an angry internet mob, and, that sort of ended your career trajectory with Magic.
Sort of. Sort of. So just let me jump into some quick details. I don't
Yeah,
need to
yeah, for
go into
sure,
whole
for sure.
detail.
Yeah.
I was sort of canceled a couple times, but the first time that you're talking about, maybe I did say some things that were bad. But yeah, I came back from that, and I got back into the golden circle of being a favorite with Wizards again. But then I betrayed their trust with memes. Magic for Bad was the second round, and got canceled that time. However, I'll say that it seemed abruptly, but man, the timing was perfect because Magic, Pro Magic got canceled with COVID, so it was going to happen sooner or later. And this
Yeah.
gave me a chance to get out and get my life set up before that happened. Because man, if you're a traveling pro when COVID happened, it's it would have been a shocker.
Okay, so that's actually a good point. And that's a really positive way to look at the whole situation, right? But you actually had some time to think about doing something totally different with your life because you got
Yeah.
quote unquote canceled early.
I also got very lucky that I was able to travel the world and play the game, see the world, and have my, Magic story arc more or less. Like, yeah, it ended maybe before it was planned, but I did get to do everything that anyone would have wanted to do.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. Compared to somebody like me,
yeah, I see these other great players coming up, and they were just hitting their stride when COVID hits and it, cancels everything. Or not just COVID, but the way they restructured the pro scene, or not even outside of Magic. Like the ability for people to travel right now is just you can still do it, but it's pretty limited compared to. So I just got pretty lucky in the timing of everything, really.
yeah. But that's a really positive perspective, I think. Not a lot of people, I think, would go through what you went through and somehow come out with that perspective.
I think if most people did, they would feel pretty blessed. Nothing really bad happened to me. Like,
Hmm.
there was some traumatic moments, but
Yeah.
it's like pretty hard to complain when you get to do all that.
Well, how did you exactly turn it around? So, from the outside perspective, it kind of looks like rock bottom, right? You had your reputation tarnished, and
Yeah.
how did you go from that and losing what you had completely to changing your life around, moving to Hawaii, starting farming, starting businesses,
Mhm.
you wrote books and now you're life coaching people. How did it all
Yeah.
start from
Okay.
Magic?
Let me take you to rock bottom, which is my favorite place to go, because there was a rock bottom, and this was after the infamous stream where I wasn't really in a very good life position to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
I was like 25, didn't have it all together, smoking a lot of weed, had some money in, like, maybe 6 months savings, so I was okay. But I was making like, $2,000 a month from Channel Fireball, started scraping by on that.
Yeah.
And I lost that sort of unexpectedly. Mm-hmm. So, I was questioned of what to do. It didn't seem like anyone would hire me because I was sort of damaged goods at that moment, and I had been, accustomed to a high rate of pay.
Yeah.
And I'd been sort of out of the job market for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
So I could go back to, if it came down to it, but I wasn't about to go back to some, I don't know, menial job. Not that there's anything wrong with that. That's not the route I wanted to go.
Yeah, I understand. Because you've been making money doing something that you're passionate about, something that you loved, something you enjoyed. It's hard to go back to do something you don't like.
So, I mean, to take it lower, things that happen after that is like, I have a couple months rent saved. What am I going to do? My lease is ending. My parents said they would not help me because they thought I was on drugs, which I sort of was. I mean, I was just smoking a lot of weed.
Yeah.
I was just smoking weed. And they're like, no, you're on drugs. We're not going to help you. So my friend, I have like a mentor, sort of an uncle, secondary father figure. He said I could like stay with him for the next 5 months while I figured it out.
Yeah.
But that meant moving back to Seattle. I moved back January 1st, 2016. The winter time. I had no clothes.
Damn.
I mean, I had no warm clothes. I didn't have like proper warm. I didn't have like a down jacket or like wool leggings or anything for like a winter in Seattle. I didn't have a car. I'd burned my bridges. I was not really in great mental health. I was sleeping on a fold-out couch in a basement, living for free. So, and I had, spent some money on trainings, bad investments. I was down to my last couple $1,000.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you can imagine that scenario, I know some people can relate to it. How do you get from there to where I am here? I never actively had a plan, but I thought like people would kill themselves in this situation.
Yeah.
I would understand why someone would do it. Especially if I failed and it got worse. So what I did have is I had an audience.
Mm-hmm.
So, the audience came with me, and I had sort of seen that this might happen, so I had an ebook ready to go. Between the streaming and the 4 or 5 years of weekly content I had, like 10,000 followers.
Yeah.
Good followers. So I offered to start coaching them to play Magic and to win tournaments.
Yeah, so you started off basically with just Magic, right?
Yeah, I started with just Magic. And
when did you realize that could, like, the skills that you developed working with Magic players, that you could apply that to larger things, bigger things?
Yeah, that's like a couple steps down. But at first it was like, I tried a couple things at first. I wasn't in a position to be a life coach at that moment, obviously. Like, I'm like a scrub kid, really. But no one was offering Magic coaching at that time. So there was no competition. A lot of people were into it. It was easy there was Magic tournaments were at their peak boom. There were 3,000 people Grand Prix. People were spending so much money.
Yeah.
So, blasted off. Like, I went from no income, no money, no warm clothes, no car, just fold-out couch in a basement in Seattle, to making more money than I had ever made within 6 months.
Yeah, that's sick.
Probably within 4 or 5 months. Yeah, it was awesome.
I remember when you first started that program too, and I was really into competitive Magic, and I was really seriously considering joining up because I wanted to get there, but I kept missing top 8s.
Yeah. So an important part of this story is that I had like $6,000 or $4,000 or something, and I took $2,000 to hire a business coach while I had no income.
Oh, wow.
So that was sort of a considerable risk. Even if you make decent money, it's like a lot to put down $2,000 for coaching.
Yeah.
And that really helped me because I could do the Magic coaching, but that helped me string together the business model that made it scale and made it a little more certain and freed up my time and improved the experience for people too.
Yeah.
So that helped me sell the coaching because I'm like, wow, like coaching is amazing. Like getting someone who knows how to do what you want to do is a great idea. And that, wanting to sort of pay it forward.
Yeah.
Over time.
So you had a real clear head and you knew what you needed to sort of take things to the next level, and you knew the risk that you should take.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When shit hit the fan, like I stopped smoking weed. Like, not that was like the only problem I had, but definitely just you can imagine me in the basement working 12-hour days, going to the gym, eating sardines, canned beans, rice, and peanuts.
That's not bad, man. That's not bad. I'm actually coming off of like 3 months of keto, and I've been eating a lot of canned fish.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad, but I was on a real budget diet, and then I would spend. Another part of the story is at that time I was probably reading about 4 hours a day, which is a lot more than most people. And to this day, I read about probably 45 minutes a day.
Yeah. And
but
that
I
adds
was
up.
reading
45 minutes is
a book
enough.
a day. Everything about 4 hours I was reading. I could really read a book a day, like on biographies, entrepreneurship, building my skills. That was another huge thing. The very unfun time in my life. I had no friends in real life at this time, basically.
Yeah.
Because I was just working on myself. There was no time to hang out.
So during that time, I know like you've always been a pretty big reader, I think. Do you think you changed up the kind of stuff you were reading? And maybe you, like for example, some of the stuff that you got into hot water about was history related, maybe going down some rabbit holes, trying to find out the truth about what happened in different times in history, right? But what about now? Did you change? Like, do you still care about learning about history, or is it a waste of time? Do you think
No, it's awesome.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
you still think it's valuable.
I go wherever my sort of interest goes, but I mean, I read a huge amount of history in 2020, and we can go into this later. Maybe I should go back to the story, the chronology.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, maybe we'll go to that later. But okay, so I'm in the dungeon. I guess the main, like, that experience, and I want to share that experience with people as well, caused me to be very insecure financially and just in my life. Like, you don't know what event's going to happen.
Yeah.
That's going to fuck you up.
Yeah.
Like, what sort of black swan event. So that caused me to, I don't just want to have the Magic coaching, but, like, I can clone this business. I tried many things. I'm going to do life coaching too. I did physical coaching, like fitness coaching for a while. I'm going to have, that led me to having like a job also. Like I have a job and a business and a side practice and try to save a bunch of money, invest money. And, that the trauma from that, like, and the insecurity that caused definitely helped me get to a better situation where, like, a lot of what was wrong is I was too complacent. I didn't have safety nets. I didn't have belts and suspenders. I didn't have backups.
Yeah.
And, I was just a couple moves from the street, really. I was lucky to get out of there how I did.
But you were also just a few steps from where you are today. It didn't take you so long to completely change things around, right?
No, it only took a couple years,
yeah.
really.
So in a couple years, you went from your rock bottom to being in a place of success and confidence where you feel like you can actually help and coach other people.
Yeah, that's part of why I like to help people, because I can relate to the darkness, and I know you can come out of there too.
Yeah. So back to the books thing, though.
Mhm.
I know you're a big books guy. You just say, like, just read what you're interested in.
Yeah.
As long as you're reading.
Yeah.
The more you read, the better, right?
Yeah.
Is there any book that you regret reading? Is there anything you think is actually not so much worth the time? Or should you really just read anything you like? Is anything good?
I probably actually, no one's ever asked me that, by the way. It's a good question. Do I ever regret reading anything? Probably. I do actually regret reading so much fantasy growing up. I read like so much, like Redwall, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter.
Oh, really?
Stuff like that, like an excessive amount.
Huh.
I was always into reading, but growing up I just read like a lot of fiction and fantasy.
Yeah.
And I don't think it benefited me very much. I think it helped me become a strong reader.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't, like, what's the value in reading is to learn new skills, to figure out what's happening in the world, what's going to happen, to make better decisions, and to feel more connected, to better understand other people, sorts of things.
That's interesting. Well, yeah, I actually read mostly fiction, though, and I prefer to read mostly fiction. And I think that I get more out of it than most nonfiction that I've read.
Maybe you're not reading the right nonfiction. A lot of nonfiction is trash, too. So I would say that I regret reading, well, I don't necessarily regret, but I've read a lot of, like, fluff, too. Like, that's like one idea just packaged as a 200-page book.
Yeah, you need to know who you're getting your information from, right, with nonfiction.
Yeah.
But also, I don't read fantasy either. I read, like, I'm talking about the great classic novels that people agree. You can get a lot out of fiction, I think, because it's such a consolidated form of the human experience. It's somebody's life experience put into, sure, a fictional story, but there's so much that goes into it. So I think you can actually take away a lot out of certain stories. Maybe not Harry Potter, but...
I'm not anti-Harry Potter. It was just excessive for me, I think.
Yeah.
Like,
okay.
I didn't read anything but fiction growing up.
Yeah.
And I'm not against anything that causes people to read books. But, man, like, truth is stranger than fiction, and it really happened. And there's all these history, like, it's so interesting. And I feel like the more you learn, the more interesting it becomes. The more you read, the faster you're able to read, and the more you can retain. The more books you read, the more interconnected the ideas are with the other ideas, the more angles you look at. So it's like cumulative. It just gets more and more fun and interesting and exciting.
Yeah. It's like a huge net of knowledge.
Yeah, I just want to encourage everyone to do that. It's so entertaining. Just quenching your thirst for wanting to know what happened, what's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I guess no one really knows what's going to happen, but we've all got our guesses or educated opinions,
Yeah.
And through all of this, you've been creating tons and tons of content, and you don't slow down. And that's something that is personally really inspiring to me, because I've had kind of similar experiences, not exactly the same, but I went through a thing where I had tons and tons of hate, people who were giving me a lot of hate online, flagging down my videos. I lost monetization and stuff before that happened on the website. And just tons of things happened when I was making YouTube videos maybe 5 years ago, where I lost the motivation. I got discouraged. I tried to make my usual content, but when the views went down, I lost motivation and I eventually quit, right? And even now, I'm still struggling with getting back into it and making consistent content. So how do you maintain this seemingly undying motivation to keep creating, to keep writing, to keep putting stuff out there?
Yeah. Well, one thing I think that I have what you call the fire, and I've just probably always had that, where I just have this sort of drive in me to do more, and it's like speaking, like making YouTube videos, an easy thing to do that's quick and sort of productive.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it goes back to the trauma, the financial insecurity, and just wanting to, like, one of my backups is having an engaged audience.
Yeah.
So I never want to lose that in case everything else fails. I'll be able to claw out with that. Part of it at this point is not financial, it's duty and obligation, where I've just been doing it for so long. And there's people like you who say, hey, you keep making videos, that's great, that's inspiring, keep doing it. Just the act of doing it is a big thing. So a lot of it is like, well, I have to make a couple videos this week. Like,
yeah, that's actually big. That's a big thing. Just the act of doing it is enough.
Yeah, exactly. Just I want people to check back in a couple of years, and I still have making videos, and I don't care if they have 100 views or 200 views. You know, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's not your primary focus. It's not like you're depending on it for income. So just doing it is enough because you're already all set.
Yeah, it's not about the money. There were points where it was sort of about money, or at least money was one of the main factors, but now it's definitely not one of the main factors.
Yeah. Huh. I guess a related question would be, not only do you work on a lot of stuff, but you really finalize and publish and release, like books, for example, right? And
yeah.
I've been writing a book for the past 3 years, and I'm about 50,000 words in, and I just can't do the final 5% of work it'll take me to really smooth it out and publish it. How do you just finish things, right? How do you push yourself to finish things and put it aside and move on to the next thing, you know?
I think part of it is this mantra I have, doesn't have to be perfect, just has to be done. Where I used to have problems with perfectionism, I can understand, like, you keep tweaking it, whether it's a magic deck or like music. I used to produce music.
Yeah.
Or I just became comfortable. I sort of changed the goal from producing like all really, really high quality stuff to just producing a lot of stuff, like to be prolific. Again, just the act of doing it's good enough. So I'm okay with publishing trash, honestly. Like, some of my writing is just not very good. One of the books I took down from Amazon because I'm like, this is sort of trash. And I just have this feeling that, like, if you want to make better products, you just make the next one better. You publish this one and you make the next one better. So, you know, my books have gotten better over time.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, just publish this one and then start on the next one. And then as soon as you start on the next one, you'll forget about this one.
It's true. Unless it comes back to haunt you. You know, you never know who's going to read it and what's going to happen.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, I guess I wonder what you're writing.
Oh, well, it's a comedy, and it's not very politically correct. So I feel like if the wrong people read it, I don't know, I might get into some trouble.
Well, yeah, I mean, in that case, you just publish with a pseudonym, and I mean, I always feel like, I guess it happened to me, but most of the time, like, people don't even gonna pay attention to you.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, some of these books I spent, I don't know how many hours, but like 100 people bought it, and I'm like, that's awesome, that's 100 people, but it's also not very much, right?
Yeah.
Like, how many people finished it? The goal is also not about money for that one.
Like, if you publish on Amazon, you're not getting paid much from those 100 people, right? You need bigger numbers if you want
to. Like $700, $500. I spent $500, or maybe I lost money on it. Who cares?
Yeah.
It's for just doing something.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, one of my favorite people online that I follow, Tim Rogers, he doesn't publish his novels, but he says that he writes every day, and he's written hundreds of novels throughout his life because he writes every day. But it's just...
should publish.
Why doesn't he publish?
Well, yeah, he should. Why not?
That's a good question. I think he said that he doesn't see himself as a writer, and he never thought that he wanted to make a career out of it. He just does it as a personal hobby. It's just for him.
It's interesting.
Yeah, it's the first time I've heard of somebody actually spending that much time on something and dedicating themselves to something, but not having interest in actually sharing it and trying to monetize it. Right.
I guess I can relate to that. I mean, there's a lot of incredible musicians out there who don't share it. They don't have channels. They don't, they just play. They like to play music. So writing could be a similar thing.
That's true. It just enriches your life, right? It's like reading almost, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so.
Because you don't have to really do anything with it, but just doing it is beneficial.
Yeah.
Well, one other thing that you put out that I love a lot, I think it's maybe my favorite thing that you've ever released, which is the TED Talk you did about going downstairs. For people who maybe have not seen it, you got on TED and you were just talking about going downstairs.
You stood up and you sat down facing the same direction you stood up. You didn't stand up and turn around and sit down knee first. Just like we don't turn around and climb down ladders knee first. We climb down ladders backwards. So if stairs are anything like chairs or ladders, then why do we go down them knee first? It's a good question.
And it sounds so silly at first, right? People's first reaction, it sounds like, what is this guy talking about? But by the end of it, you really feel like, hey, I should do things differently. And it doesn't even just apply to stairs. There's a bigger message there, right?
Galileo said, the science suggests that the Earth orbits the sun. It was an unpopular idea at the time, but over time, the science won out. Perhaps this is a similar situation.
It always pops into my head because here in Japan, they don't have down escalators, man. They only have up escalators.
That's so interesting.
Which is just ass backwards because everybody's walking down the stairs and like breaking down their knees, and then you're standing there when you could be going up and exercising.
Yeah. It's, I have a lot of doubt and uncertainty around this, and I think that's the point I was trying to get across. I still go downstairs backwards sometimes. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure, though. Like, it might be good to have some impact. Maybe it strengthens you. For some people, it's a nice option to have. But I think, I was just trying to, scramble people's brains a little bit of, what do, create. We're so certain about all these everyday things that we do. But maybe there's another. What if we're wrong? Maybe there's another way.
Yeah, and that's the point that I got from it, where you talk about the herd. Everyone's just joining the herd. Everyone's walking down the stairs the same way. But it's true in a way because there's so many things that we just do because that's the way it's done. That's the way we do it. But and you also say it's hard to be different, right? It's hard to be different.
It is hard to be different. Yeah.
But maybe we should be in certain cases.
Someone has to be. If you walk apart from the herd so the herd can follow you, someone has to.
Yeah. So, ultimately your well-being and success and following what you believe in and making an impact with it, right, is more important than fitting in to what is normal, right?
Yeah, and I think especially for a man, standing out is important to success.
Yeah.
Anyways. So, fitting in is not really generally what you want to do. It depends. It sort of depends. But, leaders and successful and exceptional people stand out is different. It's obvious. So, that's more to aspire to than looking and being like everyone else when over 50% of American men are obese now.
Yeah.
You don't want to be normal. Yeah, not to blame people for society, but you don't want to be a normal person in this society.
That's so good. Oh, that's really good. That's pretty good, dude.
Well, I'm glad you found it funny. I know the very first controversy I had, people thought I was making fun of fat people because of comments like that. But it's really not.
Yeah, man, you can't.
Your laughing doesn't make it better, but that's really not what I'm what I'm trying to do.
You can't say anything anymore. People always want to shut you down, you know. And it's terrible.
Yeah.
It's terrible though because the science isn't out on a lot of things, and it's good to discuss a lot of things. And there are a lot of recent issues that we've sort of decided are a certain way, right? But what if they're not? They should be more open to discussion. But a lot of people can't handle even a simple discussion, you know.
Social media is pretty bizarre.
Pretty bizarre.
It's super bizarre. Yeah, it's hard to even go there.
Yeah. So you mentioned men specifically have more.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the stakes are higher for men. Men should try to stand out more, right? And I've been thinking about this kind of a lot recently about how women have more sort of inherent value biologically just because they can produce children and they're necessary, right? And men don't have any inherent value.
Yes.
So we have to create value. We have to become valuable.
Yes.
So do you have any advice for young men out there of how to do that? What kinds of things they should be focusing on?
Yeah. One thing to know, and this is pretty interesting, most people don't know this, is that there's significantly men who are born than women.
Mm-hmm.
In most living species, it's not 1-to-1. I don't know why people think that.
Yeah.
It's close to 1-to-1, but for every 100 women or men, or for every 100 women, there's like an extra 5 to 10 dudes.
Yeah.
And then if you space that out along billions of people,
mm-hmm.
that's like extra hundreds of millions of dudes.
Yep. Not to mention places like China where, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
China's even more extreme. There's like 15 extra per 100.
Yeah.
But yeah, even discounting if there's selective abortion, there's still a gender imbalance. And now in the world, there's more men than women alive.
Mm-hmm.
Also. So you just have to realize that not only are you extra, but even if you're 1-to-1, if it's 1-to-1, you're still extra because you don't need 100 men for 100 women. You need like 80, right?
Or less.
Yeah. You're just an extra dude. Nobody cares about you, really. No one's going to come looking at you if you stay in your room and watch porn and play video games all day. So, yeah, the stakes of biological success in life are high. We think that everybody's a winner because all of our descendants were winners, but probably a huge majority were losers. They died early. They didn't reproduce. They didn't have a good life. So yeah, sort of general advice would like learn and read about history, strive to be great, care about your body, work out and nutrition and sleep, and fight, especially in today's age, fight quick dopamine pleasure and everything that is, and the porn, social media, alcohol, tobacco.
It's a good point, and I think a lot of people don't take it seriously, and they don't think about that it has connections, and it makes an impact on your life beyond just stopping the substance, right? Let's say you smoke a lot of weed and you quit weed. It's not just that you get over the drug and then you're not dependent on the drug. That's a factor. But also you're building discipline, right? You're just becoming a stronger person from that point on.
Yeah, you're becoming a stronger person. Also, you're freeing yourself from just being distracted all the time.
Yeah.
Like, you just need some time, quiet time with no music, no people to think, like, what am I going to do with my life? Where have I gone wrong? What can I do to fix it?
Yeah, that's actually a sickening thing about Japan that I've learned is I think they watch even more TV than Americans, and it's not even an active viewing, but most Japanese families actually have the TV on all the time. Especially when they're eating meals together, the TV will be on in the background. It's just always playing, it's always in the background. And when I think about that, it's exactly that. There's no quiet time. Even like there are public baths here, and I go pretty frequently because I love that volcanic hot spring water. Feels really good,
Yeah.
real healthy. But anyway, they have saunas there, and in the sauna, they've got a TV. I can't even sit there in peace and quiet in the sauna.
I hate that.
Yeah, it's terrible, man. It's terrible. So I think that's a huge thing that people nowadays, we don't give ourselves any time to be quiet and come up with ideas, because every time you feel bored for a second, okay, what do? You pick up your phone, right? You go to your phone. You don't allow your brain to sort of just sit there and marinate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a huge problem for people. There's temptation everywhere and everything in today's age.
Yeah. Temptation. It's a good word. Old word, but a good word. Sounds kind of like biblical, but
yeah,
still relevant.
Yeah. I'm not anti-pleasure. It's just like you get more pleasure from the big successes than from the getting a notification or getting a hit of whatever.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned like the obvious things to quit would be drugs, right? Things like that. But for men specifically, I've been thinking recently that dating when you're young is maybe not always, but is largely a waste of time. Largely a waste of time. Because you're not in a position in your life where you can make sort of bigger commitments with this person. It's not going to turn into a long-term investment for you. It's basically just pleasure, right? Where you could be spending that time studying and learning and working and building up your value. Instead, you're spending it just messing around with somebody just as young and inexperienced as you, not really learning much from that experience.
Yeah, I can comment on that. Well, first of all, in older generations, people were having children young. I mean, people were having kids in the early 20s. Now it's pushed back to 30s. But I sort of agree with you, maybe for a different reason. Part of that is like you have very little mate value as a young man, specifically like early 20s, early mid-20s.
Yeah.
Just knowing what women want. They want status, which it does mean money, but it also means standing. It means connections. It means how society views you. Physical youth is not really an important attribute that women are after. So you just, as a young man, there's no societies where young men are very highly valued. I mean, certain young men in society may be highly valued, but in general, no. And if you just try to do a lot of dating during that time, you're probably not going to have the best experience. So, I think it's great to gain experience in your teenage and maybe college times when there's a lot of age mating. But after you get out of that and you're into the world, there's not so much age mating. On average, across the world, women date 3, 5, 7 years up. So suddenly you're a 23-year-old guy out of college, and you're just not going to do so well. And if you don't understand that, you're going to have a bad time. So that's what I did personally. I had girlfriends through college, high school and college, and then spent a large amount of my early 20s single intentionally, semi-intentionally. Yeah, at times intentionally, at times not. But it was sort of deliberate.
Yeah.
And I think think it was great. It was just would have been a distraction, and not so successful anyways.
Yeah, I actually didn't. I was kind of more shy in high school. Didn't get laid in high school, and I think that actually had some negative effects on my life. Where after high school, I was focused so much on it, even though it didn't really benefit me much when I actually got into that relationship, because it ended up being a relationship, my first relationship, because I didn't have that high school experience, was still at that level where it wasn't really adding much to my life, and it just wasted a lot of my time. But
yeah, that's probably another area where I've been lucky, is because since I had girlfriends in high school and college,
mm-hmm.
it felt okay to be single for like 5 years in my early 20s. Like, I don't have any ego problem with that. Like, when you're, I guess, still trying to get laid or whatever, then there's something unresolved there.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, personally, it helped me not care.
Yeah. Nowadays, I don't really care so much, and I just have a girlfriend, but I don't really spend much time with her, and which might sound bad, but it's good to keep your time organized, so you don't spend too much of it where you don't need to be.
Mhm. It means different things for different people.
Yeah. I had a question from somebody on Twitter, actually. I said I had a special guest coming on. Does anybody have any questions? Could be about anything, and this is what I've got here. This might be a very general question, but maybe you might have something to say about it. He asked.
Yeah.
This is from Mr. DF1 Mustang. He asked about passion versus reality. How do you balance it when do you cut your losses? When should or shouldn't you take risks? How do you know when you should take risks?
It's a good question. Okay, so you go back to Magic. Like, the further you are ahead, the fewer risks you need to take. Mm-hmm. The more farther you are behind, the more risks you need to take. So and you got to be honest with yourself, if you're on a trajectory of being an incel, a lifetime involuntarily celibate, you're not going to have kids, you're not going to have a good life, then you really need to push the risks. If you're listening to this and you're 40 years old, you're married, you got 2 kids, there's no reason to take any risks, really. I mean, do things to make you happy. Like, you don't need to be that motivated. You've accomplished a lot.
Yeah.
But if you're one of these many extra dudes, like, you have to take risks, or you're gonna have a bad life. You're not going to accomplish things, and you're not going to be happy too. So, I mean, that can be career risks. It can be financial risks. It can be risks of moving places. And you can acknowledge that, hey, it could go wrong. It could go really wrong. But if you do nothing, you're going wrong anyways. Like,
yeah.
If you do nothing, you're going to lose anyways.
That's true. That's actually, I think maybe a lot of people might look at it the opposite way, where, for example, rich people can risk a lot, right? So if you tell the average person, hey, you should be making investments into, I don't know, like Bitcoin. I guess Bitcoin's not even, it's not that risky. But
it's not that risky.
Yeah, it's not that risky. But just as an example, you should be investing XYZ. Average person maybe can't do that because they're not in a position to risk. But somebody with more money, they have the ability to risk more, right? But you're actually saying somebody with less should be risking more.
Let me share a couple stories with you.
Sure.
The first you should know that this is a great example, and I wanted to go to Bitcoin. It's not really contentious. The dollar over time loses value tremendously.
Yeah.
It's like 40 years ago, 60 years, 100 years ago. If you're trying to save money for the future, dollars is a guaranteed loss. That's not up for debate. That's not contentious. If you're trying to save it, it's a guaranteed loss. So Bitcoin is at least going to give you a chance, right?
Yeah, it's true.
A chance is way better than a guaranteed loss. Like a chance of success is way better than guaranteed loss. And it could be Bitcoin, it could be real estate, it could be stocks.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Bitcoin. Yeah, if you're very wealthy, it's more about a fortress and a moat to protect and preserve. But I mean, if you're broke, you have nothing to lose. The first person I met in real life who was like fucking crypto wealthy, he had nothing. He went from nothing to being multimillionaire. It was a crazy story. How did he do it? So, Ethereum, when Ethereum came out, what was it, 2016 or 2015?
Yeah, something like that.
I wasn't really too close in the scene at that time. And it's over $1,000 right now.
Yeah.
He was there for the Kickstarter. There's like a Kickstarter where you put in money and you get ETH tokens, like the launch. He was there for the launch. Not only did he put in all the money that he had saved, but he also took out credit card debt and multiple credit cards and put all of his money in. Yeah, and it went from $1 to $1,000.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was less than $1.
Not that I'm going to recommend credit card debt on this show, though.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can use, the richer you are, like you can use debt or leverage to, improve. Like, if that didn't work out, like, who cares? He's not in a good life situation anyways.
Okay,
right?
That's a good point.
He's a young guy with not much money.
Yeah.
But now, like, he became multimillionaire in a year. So that's an example of how you can. It seems like you have no resources, but through taking risks, you get out of it. And
that's
then
true.
Another example that I'll give you is right now everybody's getting these stimulus checks, right? Like that's guaranteed. It's just going down the pooper, right?
Yep.
How fast is up for debate?
Yep.
But my girlfriend and she's not a crypto person at all, except she put her stimulus check into Bitcoin. So everyone can do that. Everyone's getting that money.
That's true. That's a good point. Well, everyone could do that unless they literally need that stimulus money to, like, eat, right?
It's true. There's some people who are so far down.
Yeah.
They have no money. And, I mean, also, it's not people's fault. The system poops out losers at an alarming rate, and it's not the loser's fault.
Yeah, well, yeah. There are going to be a lot of losers. It's not the loser's fault, but there's a lot that we can do to try to win. Like you said in a recent video that life is like a chess game, right? You just got to make the right decisions most of the time, and then you'll come out on top. You'll have a pretty good life.
A few good decisions. Like, I mean, that my friend who I shared with you made one good decision. He may have made, like, many bad financial decisions up to that point.
Yeah.
But he made one really good decision that paid off, and he hit a grand slam. It changed his life forever, and not just his life, but it makes it way easier for him to have kids, which he hasn't done yet, and to give them a great life too, have generational wealth.
Yeah, and I mean, nowadays there's less going out and mingling with people. The general advice would be to try to get to know tons of people, make connections, so you can put yourself in positions where you have these opportunities to take these risks, right? If you don't know anybody and you're nobody, it was pretty hard to find those opportunities, right? But now with the internet, anybody can do some research, do some reading, and make investments, right?
Yeah, definitely with books too. It's like you have these brilliant people in your back pocket that you just hear. I mean, I heard the story from the guy in person, but you heard it from me, and now you have that. You maybe might do something similar, you might not, but you have one more story of how somebody turned it around, and I mean that story was big. That story was big for me too. Just sort of gave me some ideas to work with.
Yeah, sometimes you just gotta go all in, especially if you don't have that much. You know, if you got $30, like, go all in. You can't parson that out.
Max your credit cards.
Yeah.
I thought that story's so badass to me.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen a lot of people talking about it on Twitter saying, oh, I just took out X amount on credit card debt to buy Bitcoin, you know. But right now...
Yeah, but he did it at the start when...
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's... it's probably still an okay idea. I mean, it's always going to be risky.
Yeah.
It's probably less risky now than it was, because it could have gone to zero.
Yeah, but it's more about the lesson, right? It doesn't have to just be about crypto. It could, you know.
So, yeah, for sure. The more risk, the higher reward. Is another thing.
Yeah.
Generally.
So we're talking about how basically the U.S. economy is going down the pooper, right? The U.S. dollar's going lower and lower. It's only a matter of time.
Yeah.
The only debate is how fast and if there's going to be a sudden collapse, like very soon. It could happen this month. It could happen tomorrow, right? But so what would you do? What do you have planned for 2021? What do you think people should do?
Great. This brings me to the last thing that I wanted to talk about and share from my life. But something that happened Monday. And on Monday, the U.S. dollar went down 1% versus the Chinese yuan. Which, I mean, if it did that for 3 months, it would be down 90%.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know if that trend's going to continue. Also, that's just something I saw on Twitter, but I sort of Googled it. I couldn't find but it's a trend. The dollar's losing value versus other foreign exchange currencies. Dixie, DXY is down. Everything's rallying. Why is Bitcoin is up? Stocks are at record highs. Real estate's at record highs. Even though, like, you're not even allowed to charge rent anymore. Like, why is everything going up? No, it's because the dollar is going down. And that's probably, I mean, this is one of the reasons to read history. This is a lot of the history that I've been reading is currency crises, inflationary and deflationary crises, money. By nature, usually you have, like, the dollar is the world's reserve currency. That causes us to be very bad at exporting, which causes over time the dollar to lose value because we're not creating anything. Like, our economy is not real.
Yeah.
So usually, like, reserve currencies don't last very long. Fiat currencies don't last very long either.
Yeah.
We're probably seeing a flippening to China. We're seeing a flippening to Bitcoin. What is that going to mean for average people? We're already seeing, we're seeing asset prices go crazy high. We've been seeing the real cost of living going up. We've been seeing healthcare and education going up. We've been seeing, you probably can relate, and people listening have just noticed prices going up. Where I work, we order cardboard boxes, and the price went up 10% this month. I just went to order a basketball online. I noticed the price went from $40 to $65. I went to order dog food. I noticed the price went from like $50 to $70.
Yeah, but this is just small changes, though. I think there's going to be huge shit coming our way, like a huge tidal wave of shit, the entire system changing. They've already been conditioning us to stay home, don't go outside, rely on the internet for absolutely everything. And I think currency is going to follow. They're moving towards trying to push things to going online. Maybe we'll have governments rolling out their own cryptocurrencies, things like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, you see small changes, but small changes add up very quickly. Like with the 1% becomes 90%. If there's a 10% price increase a month, then there's a doubling every 7 months. Like prices would 4x in a year or something like that.
Yeah.
It would happen real fast. So what's the last thing that I recommend? So my day job, I grow food. I work at an organic farm. We grow fruits and roots and salad, and I raise livestock, pigs, chicken, and sheep. So this is another reason to study history. Generally, the farmers do pretty well.
Yeah.
Because food's the most valuable good. I already saw it this year when who found out they're not an essential worker, right?
Yeah.
Like farmers are essential workers.
Mm-hmm.
So you have job security in this industry. Maybe it's not the highest standard of living, but the floor is pretty high. Like you're going to have food to eat and you have land to sleep on, most likely. Those are the basics.
Mm-hmm.
So my job, I get some money, but not very much money for my job. It pays me in food and housing. So
yeah, and also you just have a healthy lifestyle, right?
Yeah, healthy lifestyle. Like if you're being really optimistic, like was your, bird song, sunshine, working outside, working with animals. We could go into the blue zones. Most people who live a really long time are very happy to do these things.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're talking doomsday, like you might not want to be in the city. you might want to know how to grow food.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's pretty hard to predict. It's more, I think, 2021 we're going to see the economic fallout, which could be really bad, like worse than the disease, could kill more people.
Yeah, it's true. Like in one of your recent videos, you said, so people are saying 2021 is going to get better. Maybe, right? And that's a similar thing that I've been thinking is everybody, like, we benchmark things by year. That's just our sort of way of organizing time, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything, right? Things are just continuing where they left off last year, and we didn't leave off on the right foot, so there's no reason to assume things will just get better because it's a new year. I think things might get worse.
It looks to me like things are getting much worse economically.
Yeah. Like we haven't experienced the economic consequences for all the fucking money they're printing and people staying home and the economy sort of shutting down. We are sort of still just chilling out, having fun playing video games at home. Like we don't understand how bad things can get.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. The dollar losing competitiveness is a really scary thing.
Yeah.
Which I think 2020 might be about. If I'm wrong, great. If it's all hunky-dory, great. But that's my pessimistic concern for the year.
I'm not sure if I would call it pessimism, though. Like, for me personally, I'm super optimistic. I'm the most positive person maybe you'll ever meet in your life.
It doesn't... Really?
No, really. But I make a distinction. Okay. I make a distinction between optimism and realism. It's not pessimism when I think that this year is going to be worse than the last year. That's just realism based on the information that I have, right? Like you don't have to lie to yourself. That's not what optimism is. Like this year was fucking terrible for me personally. Fucking terrible year with, like I'm Armenian, Turkey, Azerbaijan coming in, invading my homeland, everything like that. Like there's just so much shit happened this year. But personally, I'm hopelessly optimistic and happy all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the optimism part of me is like, I'm probably gonna be good. Like the more chaos we've seen, the better the farm does. The more COVID scare, the better the farm does. The more the dollar weakens, the richer I'll be because of crypto. But I'm scared about other people. I'm scared about people who don't know what's going on. I'm scared about people who haven't been positioning themselves and are depressed and they're isolating and they don't have a job and they're obese and they're constantly distracted and addicted to 7 things. And that's epidemic that describes so many people. I've coached and talked to so many people like that in the last year. I'm really concerned. I'm really concerned for people.
Yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough, but what can you do, man? You can only do what you can.
Yeah.
Which is a stupid thing to say. You can. Yeah, I can't believe I just said that. That's pretty funny. You can only do what you can do.
True. There's a lot of truth to that.
But yeah, man, I don't want to keep you too long. It's been the hour.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Thanks.
I'll definitely, link all your stuff in the description. If you want to say anything to close this out, anything you'd like. If you have anything to promote.
No, I guess you could just type in Travis Wu. You can find me on YouTube or Twitter or whatever. Yeah, I want to thank you. You asked me some questions nobody's asked me before. Thanks for letting me sort of ramble.
Thank you, man.
And yeah, I also hope that you continue doing this, and hope you're able to get some more interesting people, and yeah, make something out of it.
No, seriously, thanks a lot. Like, there are a lot of people out there that admire you, and I think you're an inspiring guy in the way that you are able to just carve out your own path and be confident and succeed, right? You chose your path and you stuck to it and you're fucking doing it, and
yeah,
that can help a lot of people, I think.
I hope so. Sometimes I just feel like I'm like lucky, born with a silver spoon, and people can't copy. But I mean, I have been in the darkness, so that's why I like to share that story. I've had some bad times, so I can relate.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks a lot. Travis Wu,
yeah,
everybody. It was really great to finally talk to you after
just
like hanging around online for a couple years now.
Yeah, thanks.